Hello and welcome back Tech. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a DIY magic fairy light wand with using an Attiny85 microcontroller. Let's get started. And these are the items you're going to need to make for this project. The items you're going to need: some scrap leather that's going to be used to wrap around the wand, this metal glass globe that came from a curtain rod, which I think will look perfect for this project by stuffing the fairy lights inside of. You're also going to need a nice looking wooden rod. I chose this wooden rod because it came from an old axe. And the electronics you're going to need: a perf board, some neodymium magnets, a 3-volt button cell battery holder, a 3-volt button cell battery, an 8-pin IC socket holder, an Attiny85 microcontroller, and a slide switch. And of course, some fairy lights. And this right here is the schematic that you're going to need to follow to make for this project. And of course, the code is down in the description below. Now let's go and assemble this project, and let's get started. First, I'm going to start with this perf board and this 3-volt button cell battery holder. Place it into the perf board, just like this. And now solder it into place. Next, solder in these tabs that are on the end of the perf board. And then take the slide switch and place it on top of the pads. Solder the slide switch into place. Add a little more solder to solder it into place better. Next, take this wire that came from an LED, which I use as a bridge wire. Place it right here, halfway through the hole. Bend over the lead. And now solder it into place. And now bend the lead over to the positive terminal of a 3-volt button cell battery holder. Solder it into place. And there, the wire is now connected to the 3-volt button cell battery holder. Now go on the opposite side of the board. And now bend the wire over to the slide switch. Cut off the excess. Bend the wire a little bit more. And now solder it to the slide switch. And there, the slide switch is now connected to the positive terminal of the 3-volt button cell battery holder. Next, take the IC socket holder and place it into the perf board. This pin right here is pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I want to connect pin 8 over to the slide switch. And I'll connect pin 4 over to the negative terminal of the 3-volt button cell battery holder. And then pin 5, 6, and 7 will connect to the anodes of the fairy lights. Clamp down the IC socket holder. And now solder it into place and solder in all 8 pins. Next, take another bridge wire, bend it in a 90-degree angle, and then connect pin 8 over to the slide switch. Place it right there, right next to pin 8, solder it into place, and then solder bridge it over to the slide switch. And now bend the opposite end of the bridge wire over to pin 8. And now solder bridge it to pin 8. Cut off the excess. Next, take this wire, place it over to pin 4, and connect it to the negative terminal of the 3-volt button cell battery holder. And there, it should look just like this. And I'll connect the anodes of the fairy lights over to pin 5, 6, and 7. Before I do that, I need to modify the fairy lights. I only have 2 strands of fairy lights, so I had to find the center of one of the strands of the fairy lights and cut it at the center. Doing this will give me 3 strands of fairy lights. And now what I need to do is remove the insulation that is on the fairy light wires. Simply take some sandpaper and sand it off. Make sure you sand it all the way around. Test it with the 3-volt button cell battery. This side's a negative, this side's a positive. Touch the wires. Turn the battery around. And as you can see, it's not working because I didn't get all the insulation off. What I'm going to do is take a lighter and burn off the insulation. In my opinion, this is the best way to remove the insulation. Now test it with the battery, and there, you can see it lights up. And now we know which wire is the anode and which wire is the cathode. Mark the cathode wire black, so that way I can identify which is anode and cathode. And now do the same thing with the rest of the fairy lights. Take the anode and connect it to pin 5, 6, or 7. And then take the cathode and connect it over to pin 4. Take this anode and connect it to pin 7, and then the cathode over to pin 4, just like this. Push down the wires. Make sure everything is touching properly and bent into place. And now solder it into place. A small issue, the solder is not connecting to the wires. That's because there's too much insulation on the wire. So what I'm going to do is take a knife and scratch off the insulation. Doing this will make it easier to solder it into place. Simply scratch it off. And as you can see, the solder is now wetting the wire, which means it's making proper contact. And there, the wire is now soldered into place and is solder bridged over to pin 7. Cut off the excess. Solder in the cathode. Before I continue, I want to make a quick test to make sure it has proper connection by taking some jumper wires and connecting the negative over to pin 4 and the positive over to pin 7. Take the 3-volt button cell battery and touch the 2 jumper wires, and as you can see, the LED lights up. And there, as you can see, it works. And now repeat the same process with the rest of the LEDs. Cut off the excess, and there, all 3 of the fairy lights are now connected. Make another test to make sure it's all connected. Pin 5 works. Pin 6 works. Pin 7 works. Next, I'm going to take some hot glue and glue down the wires. Doing this will make the wires stay in place better and to make everything more secure, because these wires are very thin and they can easily break. Put a generous amount of hot glue to glue everything down in place. And there, it should look just like this. Next, take the Attiny85 and put it into place. And the 3-volt button cell battery into place. And there, the circuit is now complete. Let's go ahead and test it out. And there, the LEDs turn on. Next, cut off the excess perf board. Cut it right about here. And there, perfect, it is now the right size. Next, take a drill and drill a hole inside of this globe. And there, now there's a hole in the globe. And now I can go ahead and take the fairy lights and stuff it inside the hole and put it inside of the globe. Stuff it in just like this. Twist it a little bit so that way it goes in a random order. And it should look just like this when complete. Turn on the switch and it still works. Next, I'm going to connect the globe and stick together. Carefully screw it into place. And now take the LEDs and stuff it inside a little bit. Place a circuit right here on the end, and then continue screwing it into place. And there, it should look just like this. And as you can see, it still works. The previous battery doesn't have much charge, so I'm going to replace it with a new one. Turn on the switch, and there, the LED is a little bit brighter. Next, I'm going to take some hot glue and glue down the circuit. Add some more hot glue all the way around the sides to make sure it stays in place better. And now the circuit is glued into place. Next, I'm going to take the leather and wrap it around to cover up the circuit so that way I can make it look more authentic by covering up the circuit. And now cut off a piece of leather to create the right size. And now I have the right size, so I have now 2 pieces of leather, and the idea of having 2 pieces is because I want to wrap both of them together and leave a small gap in between, so that way I can be able to access the switch. I'm not too fond of this color of leather, so what I need to do is change the color by adding some clay dirt. This is the right pigment that I want to use to color the leather. Simply brush it on and put a generous amount on the leather to make sure that it soaks up very well. And it should look just like this. And now what I need to do is wait for it to dry, and it should look just like this when dried. This is a very satisfying color. Next, what I'm going to do is take some hot glue, place some hot glue on the side of the wand, and now take the leather and glue it to the wand. Place it on just like this, and now simply take the leather and wrap it around. Before I continue, I want to go and cut a little piece of the leather right here. Doing this will make it easier to access the switch. Fold it over, and now I can access the switch easier. And now continue wrapping. Small problem, since I put too much of that clay dirt on it, it made it very chalky and messy. So what I need to do is take this metal sponge and simply scratch off the excess. Simply cleaning it up to make it look a little bit cleaner and nicer. In fact, this color of the leather looks a lot better. And now, go ahead and do the same thing. Wrap it around carefully, bending over this flap to access the switch. Now what I need to do is add some neodymium magnets on the end of the leather. Add 2 magnets per dot of glue. Remove the second magnet that's on top to clean off the excess glue. And now put those magnets back on top of the other magnets, and then take a small dab of hot glue and put it on top of the magnet. And now take it carefully and fold it over and place it on top of the leather, so that way each magnet can stick to the leather, 2 on one side and 2 on the other side, so that way they can both connect together. And there, as you can see, it is now wrapped up and I can access the switch still. Doing this will make it easier to take the leather on and off, so that way I can be able to change the battery. Turns out I actually don't need the second piece of leather. This one piece is good enough. Next, I want to take this 28 gauge wire and I want to wrap it around the leather. Doing this will make it more decorative and make it look a little bit more unique. And this will also help hold the leather down in place better. And there, she'll look just like this. Now you may be wondering, how would I remove it? Simple, all I have to do is take the end of this wire and tuck it underneath the other wires. And then all I have to do is just undo it and then remove it. So that way I can undo the leather and then change the battery. And there, the project is now complete and it should look just like this. And now it's time to test it out. Push the switch. And now let's see how this looks in the dark. As you can see, this looks amazing in the dark. And there you have it. Now you know how to make your very own DIY Magic Very Light wand with using an Attiny85 microcontroller and a few other simple parts. Thank you for watching SciTi Tech. I hope you learned something new, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and of course click on the bell icon to be notified of future SciTi Tech videos. Till the next tech, goodbye.